daring cats that protect themselves from dangerous predators, an alligator that became a therapeutic pet, dolphins that chase sharks, loyal dogs that are ready for everything for the sake of their hosts, and much more. In this episode, you'll see the most surprising moments when animals saved people's lives. The first in line is a rather touching and at the same time revealing clip. It shows a young girl who jumped into the pool and started calling her faithful dog for help. The dog thought that the owner was drowning and was going to help in every possible way. However, there was one important catch. The four-legged friend was afraid of water. That's why the dog was running around in circles, worried, and didn't know what to do. But in the end, the dog overcame his fear, dipped into the pool, and swam to save his best friend. What is that but true love and courage? Speaking of courage, if you want to test your favorite pet and find out what exactly he's capable of, you could try to show him a similar frightening face in the form of a shadow. As this video shows, even such a small dog can dare to challenge an unknown, large and black monster. I give this little dog a huge like. In addition to defending themselves from unknown creatures, dogs are also willing to protect their owners from other people, even those with whom the owner lives directly. In this video, people wondered what would happen if a girl tried to hit a guy in front of the dog. The result shocked everyone. Despite the fact that the girl personally feeds the dog almost every day, the four-legged creature did not allow her to offend his best and first friend. As soon as the girl touched him, imitating a blow, the dog immediately grabbed her by the hair and fell on the sofa. One can only hope that their relationship doesn't deteriorate after this. At least, if I were the girl, I wouldn't take offense at the dog. After all, the animal did its duty and acted according to its conscience. For this, the dog should be praised. On the contrary, it's not only dogs that can guard people. This huge elephant can be considered as an excellent candidate for the role of bodyguard. The giant saw his old friend approaching the water, and from the very first seconds he started to protect her. What could happen? What if someone jumped out of the water? What if a dangerous predatory fish swam by? Elephants are, in fact, incredibly intelligent animals, and this kind of reaction from them is not at all considered any unique. On the contrary, these giants do things in conscience all the time. The same applies to their loved ones. If an elephant dies, its brethren will immediately gather around it, hold a passage ceremony, cover the sibling with leaves and branches, and even more surprisingly, will regularly return to the grave as if to remember their relative. Such behavior, as soon as it was noticed by scientists, immediately caused a lot of controversy, discussions in the scientific community, and of course, experiments. Due to research, people have determined that elephants have more cerebral gyri than primates, but less than cetaceans. It's believed that elephants are equal to dolphins in their ability to find a way out of complex, difficult situations. Elephants also have a large and complex hippocampus. It's much larger than that of humans. The elephant's hippocampus occupies 0.7% of the central brain structure. In humans, it's only 0.5%. The hippocampus, just in case, is the part that's responsible for the formation of emotions, the transition of memory from short-term to long-term, and spatial memory that's used for navigation. Now, let me remind you, we have 0.2% less of that hippocampus than elephants. Now, this next film surprised me just as much. It was filmed in a house. The people behind the camera stood and watched their favorite pet that bravely defended his home territory. Not from just anyone, but from a real and huge predator called a bear. I don't know what moved this fluffy cat at that moment. Maybe his owners promised him a year's supply of best food. However, it felt like the bravest spirit had been instilled in him, and he was ready to challenge even a wild and big predator. Fortunately for the cat, the bear was not angry. Therefore, no fight followed the scolding. Just as if there'd been no fight in the next story, although at a certain point it seemed inevitable. The man you see now was sitting next to his favorite cats and having a great time when suddenly a leopard tried to attack him. The sly one crept up unnoticed, and if it hadn't been for the tiger who intervened in time, the attack would have succeeded and no one knows how it would have ended. Luckily for the man, his trusty striped friend managed to spot the catch and everyone was left unharmed. Although, You know, given the leopard's reaction after meeting the man, I don't think anything truly life-threatening could have come out of this attack. It's more likely the cat just wanted to play. Who do you think will win the battle, a cat or a fox? Let's put it this way, a domestic cat or two wild foxes? Of course, most people would bet on the foxes, and this is quite understandable. Foxes are wild animals that hone their fighting skills every day. Otherwise, they wouldn't survive. Besides, there's two of them at once. The cat's alone. It's at home all day, eating what people give him. Everything seems to be obvious. But as the pet Fluffy in this video says, it's not that simple. In his opinion, the main thing is not practice, but the desire to win in spirit. The cat was confident in his abilities and therefore easily chased away the foxes one after another. No matter how they tried to take him by surprise or even attack him from behind, they were unable to do so. As a result, the cat won the battle, and the territory was cleared of uninvited guests. Working underwater is always something dangerous and very scary. After all, no matter how experienced a diver is, he'll always run the risk of personally meeting one or another creepy predator, a shark, for example. And after all, these aggressive creatures do not know pity, and therefore any such meeting can be the last for a person. In our story, the diver was unharmed. He went down to shoot dolphins, but then, out of nowhere, a rather large hammerhead shark appeared. It's considered a particularly strong predator that also swims incredibly fast. Even fast fish cannot get away from such an enemy, let alone a man. Sure that at that moment the diver's whole life flew before his eyes, and no one knows how it would have ended but for the dolphins. The smartest and at the same time kindest creatures gathered in a group and began to close the shark's view of the man. In every possible way, they tried to make it clear that it was not welcome here. Can you imagine? It worked. While some creatures are protecting others somewhere in the deep waters of the world's oceans, we, on our native land, have no less striking cases, like this one. A cat saw her owner's child crawling all alone on a rather dangerous wooden path. The baby was still very young. It didn't understand what you can and what you cannot. Therefore, as soon as the cat felt the danger, it immediately jumped and stood in front of the child, blocking the passage. The parents who filmed it were pleasantly surprised. Now they're sure that their child is not in danger, even when there's only a cat around. This four-legged one will be more reliable than most babysitters. Some are protected by small and cute cats, while others are protected by big and strong dogs. This video clearly shows a little girl riding her scooter close to home, being protected by a big and loyal Doberman. While the little girl's enjoying the fresh air, the four-legged guardian does not let his guard down for a moment. He keeps an eye on the surroundings and makes sure that no strangers come near. By the way, if you also want such a pet to drive away strangers, I recommend you to look at an alligator. Yes, you heard right. An American pensioner took a small alligator, raised it in love and affection, brought it up, taught it what is good and what is bad, and today it's one of the sweetest alligators in the world. It doesn't bite and it doesn't show any aggression towards other people. Everyone around it trusts the animal so much that they even let children play with it. People use kisses as payment for rest. Wally, that's the name of this miracle alligator, just loves them. It's said that in just a couple of minutes, Wally's on your chest, you feel much better. I don't know how true that is, but I'd like to think it's true. So, should I make an appointment for you? Write in the comments at which time you're accessible. What should you do if you encounter a huge, wild bear? Well, the first and most important nuance is that you should never turn your back on it or run away. This will only anger the predator and give it a green light to attack. The second thing you can try is to start making loud noises. Grab something in your hands and pretend that you're much bigger than you are. All of these things combined can make the pin-toed animal think that you're not a good target. Well, thirdly, if you have a dog, try to mentally negotiate a similar trick with him, just like in this video. The man started backing away towards the car, and the dog ran in the opposite direction. The bear rushed after him as well. At one point, the dog stopped and they started to stare each other down. The giant was embarrassed by the overconfidence of the four-legged one, so it lost, and as a loser, it was obliged to leave. The doggy returned contentedly to the man who had almost reached their car. All jokes aside, the situation was really disturbing. I don't know what exactly made the bear give up the attack, but it's great that it did. Maybe it felt the incredible loyalty the dog was irradiating. There's a reason they say that dog's man's best friend. Here, just take a look at how these two reacted to their master falling into the water. And it wasn't a loyalty test or anything like that. The man just jumped into the water for fun. But the dogs thought he was in trouble, and that's how they reacted. The four-legged dog started whimpering and rushing from side to side. They jumped into the water in panic, and they swam towards the man. They reached him, they put their faithful and strong backs to him, and allowed him to lean on them so that the man could have reached the shore with their help. Isn't that lovely? And the dogs are ready to save their master, not only from the water but also from an aggressive goose. The animal clung to the man's jacket and was clearly not going to let go. We don't know how it would have ended up if the dog hadn't arrived in time. It noticed that the goose got fond of its best friend and did everything to set the record straight. The dog latched onto the pesky goose's neck and held it off long enough for the man to escape. I wonder what the feathered one disliked so much. Do you have any ideas? Oh, and now I'll show you just an angelic cat that conquered the web as soon as the first video with its participation got into general access. In this video, you can see how the fluffy cat protects its very young friend in every possible way. When she stands on the edge, the cat comes in front of her and does not let her fall. When the girl is sad, the pet tries to look into her eyes and ask her what the problem is. When the little girl goes to bed, the cat's also there. It makes itself comfortable and lies down next to her. It's just an angel on the earth, isn't it? And the following video shows us what happens if you raise a pit bull properly. Let me tell you right away, everything that happens here, except for the dog's reaction, is a fake. People were curious to test their pet's behavior, and this is what happened. They simulated a thief breaking into the flat. The owner allegedly went out to check who was there. Seeing a stranger, she ran towards the bedroom where the faithful pit bull was just resting. The dog, instantly orientated, jumped out and knocked down the thief. Moreover, it pressed him so hard that he couldn't breathe and run away. That's what I mean. Talking about a true loyal dog that you can stay alone with even in the deep of night. While we're at protecting dogs, let's take a look at how a Rottweiler reacts to unusual situations. A trained dog sat still and showed no aggression to a stranger. But it was so until the stranger pushed his friend. At that moment, he got loose and attacked the scoundrel. The only thing that could stop the dog was a command from his host. Surprisingly, after the attack and the command "stop," the dog did not care about the stranger, even when the latter approached him again without attacking anyone. The pet did not attack him. The owner's word and the fact that the man was not a threat became the key for him. That's just amazing. Some dogs make sure their friends don't get pushed around. Others are on a completely different level. They act like full-fledged personal guards. They're trained to even protect a person while he withdraws money at an ATM. I don't know if I were a thief. I wouldn't risk attacking someone with that kind of security. It could be costly. By the way, it's important to note that all such dogs that act as protectors also get along well with children. They are by no means uncontrollable or aggressive. On the contrary, these four-legged friends have a gorgeous maternal instinct and a sense of duty to the owner. If there's a child in front of them, they'll stick up for it. They'll certainly not offend small children themselves. Just look at the mixture of cuteness, care, and affection in this video. All Rottweilers hang around one small child so sensitively as if it were their own cub. In our time, unusual pets are becoming more and more popular. From bats, flying squirrels, and incredible rodents to strange larvae and even poisonous creatures. Later on, I'll show you the nicest exotic animals that you can get. These animals look like bats, but they aren't. They belong to a completely different genus, family, and even order. However, these handsome creatures love to fly like bats do, more exactly, glide or float along the air. The sugar squirrels have a membrane that starts from the fifth toes of their front paws and ends at the first toes of their hind feet. When the animal jumps, it extends the legs out to the sides, tightens the membrane, and floats along in the air. In the wild, they can fly up to 50 meters and even more. You can't fly like this at home, but even there you can play games with sugar squirrels. You won't get bored with these animals. In addition, although these creatures are wild, they're very affectionate and become very attached to their owners and animals if they live in the same house. Sugar squirrels are not aggressive, respond well to the intonation of the voice, and learn simple commands. However, it'll be difficult or even impossible to completely eradicate wild instincts and habits. In the wild, these animals lead a nocturnal lifestyle. That means that it'll be active at night at home. At least at first, you'll have to put up with this if you suddenly wish to get such an exotic pet. Or maybe you're looking for something even more exotic, like a bat, for example. As I've said, these sugar squirrels are similar to bats, but they're still different animals. Bats are more exotic, yet more challenging pets. Plus, it's illegal to have them at home in some countries. What's interesting, bats were much more common as pets before 2020 than they are now. As you can imagine, the reason is the coronavirus. According to one of the main versions, all that started with a bat in the soup. In reality, a bat can quite easily make a cool pet. Those who have them say they're a bit like dogs. That may be so, but even dogs can be less of a hassle than these mini Batmen. First of all, you'll have to spend a lot of money on a spacious enclosure. These animals do their business in flight, so if you don't provide them with the enclosure, you can say goodbye to a clean house. Secondly, the house should be warm, or better, hot. These animals can't stand cold and go to hibernation. Do you need a pet that will constantly hibernate? On the other hand, do you want to live in a steam room? Finally, bats are nocturnal, so if you're not an owl, there'll be even more difficulties. However, many people are satisfied with all this and get this unique pet. Some people like bats and squirrels, whereas others prefer rodents. And I'm not talking about trivial hamsters or guinea pigs. I mean the heavy artillery. Those are capybaras in the case of rodents. They look like mutant guinea pigs, but several dozen times larger. It's not surprising. The capybara is the largest rodent on the planet. Some specimens reach 60 centimeters tall and weigh more than 130 pounds. This is not a tiny hamster you can easily place in a small cage, give him a bed, food and water, and go about your business. Capybara is a large and exotic animal, therefore he requires more attention. In the wild, at home in South America, capybaras lead a semi-aquatic lifestyle and are rarely away from the water for more than 1,500 feet or so. Accordingly, a capybara ideally needs its own pool to cool down. In an extreme case, you can do with a bath, but if you do, the water bill will skyrocket. Capybaras like to swim long and regularly. What's more, usual fodder won't be enough. You'll have to buy a lot of grass and other vegetation these rodents eat. It's also worth mentioning this giant guinea pig will take much space, but you'll solve all these problems if you really want to get a capybara. These rodents get used to people very quickly and begin to love their owners. They're very friendly and can make friends with everyone, including cats, dogs, and parrots. Capybaras can also be walked on a leash. It looks very unusual. It's guaranteed that all the passers-by will be delighted and shocked. The name of this creature lets you see it's very exotic. I'm sure most of you have never heard about it. What's this kind of creature with some kind of elven name? It's a lizard, but a lizard as unusual as its name. They have a very interesting and cute appearance. It seems as if the lizard is smiling all the time. Well, or almost all the time. It's so happy to be welcomed into the house and made a pet. People who have got a gecko should be glad because this lizard is very unusual. It's unpretentious and suitable even for allergic people. In addition, geckos are very clean and odorless pets, so their terrarium is very easy to care for. The only thing that can repel is feeding. The lizard feeds on larvae. That's why some squeamish people may immediately change their mind about having such a pet. If you're not too fastidious and already thinking of getting this miracle, bear in mind that the gecko likes larvae more than life and is ready to eat them endlessly. You should be careful not to overfeed the reptile, otherwise it'll quickly gain weight. One of the features of the gecko is a tendency to obesity. Salvador Dali is remembered not only for his strange and amazing paintings, but also for his unusual pet. He had a giant anteater. It will be problematic to get such a pet. Anyway, you can obtain a kind of its mini version, Tamandua. This is the same anteater coming to many people's minds when it comes to these creatures. Those are anteaters, ridiculously standing on their hind legs and spreading their front ones. This is their fighting posture. This is the way the anteaters try to appear bigger so that to frighten their opponents. It's funny that Tamandua can demonstrate the same behavior playing games with other pets. The cats, for example. The Tamanduas are friendly, they love active games and go walking with pleasure, even on a leash. That looks as epic as a capybara on a walk. These creatures are considered not very dangerous. However, you shouldn't play with them too much. Like other anteaters, they won't bite but can hurt you with their claws. They're sharp and can cause a serious injury. In addition, the animal suffers from myopia, so it's most likely to hit indiscriminately. That makes his blow even more dangerous. In the wild, the Tamandua tamandua feeds on ants and termites like other anteaters. Therefore, there will be difficulties with getting these small insects for the pet. So the domestic tamanduas are often fed a mixture of vegetables, fruits, nuts, oatmeal, and raw minced meat from lean meat varieties. Many people are very fond of koalas. These funny Australian animals are cute and plush. That's why there are those who would like to have one in their home. Unfortunately, this is impossible. The koala is considered a vulnerable species and not very suitable for being a pet because of its habits. Anyway, you can get a kinkajou, a creature that looks very similar to the koala and is allowed to be a pet. Interestingly, the kinkajou is not a koala at all. It's actually a raccoon. It lives in South America and it's very popular as a pet on the continent. The kinkajou is perfectly accustomed to captivity, very attached to the owners, loves caresses and cuddles. The kinkajous are curious and always try to be near people. These tactility lovers, kinkajou, will fit right in. At the same time, the kinkajou also has its pitfalls. For example, it cannot be left alone, unattended outside the enclosure. Otherwise, it'll tear your flat into pieces. In addition, kinkajou won't do well in cold climates. That's logical given that it takes origin from the hot jungles of the Amazon. What's more, you shouldn't play with kinkajou. Like all raccoons, it's a predator and can bite heavily. Its bite can transmit an infection with the symptoms including fever, stomachache, and headache. Let it better a kinkajou bites me than this amazing little creature. How could it possibly bite someone? It looks as harmless as possible. The animal isn't big at all and you can drown in its eyes. It's almost like that. This is a slow lemur, a primate from Asia. These animals weigh not more than 3.5 pounds and don't exceed 16 feet in length. I'm talking about the maximum size. They love to eat something. This lemur can be caught with some fruit or berry. These creatures are very leisurely. It's not without reason that they're called slow lemurs. But let's get back to the main thing, the bite. Why is the bite of a predatory kinkajou less dangerous than the bite of this cute primate? Because the lemur's poisonous. Until last year, it was considered the only poisonous primate in the entire world. The primate's venom is produced by its forelimbs. So when the animal feels danger, it raises its arms and smears venom on its head to protect itself from a predator. But in extreme cases, slow lemur can take the venom into its mouth and bite. Its poison can cause suffocation and death, not only in small animals but even in humans. Anyway, the likelihood of this happening is low. Domestic lemurs are attached to humans and not very willing to bite their feeders. They'd rather bite some fruit. At the same time, they don't like other animals, so it's better not to get them if there's already a pet in the house. What's more, these cuties are characterized by curiosity. They're always climbing, hiding somewhere, and studying something. In contrast to dogs and cats, they don't chew or spoil things. These beauties are nocturnal and sleep during the day. So you'll have to change your schedule or try to catch a moment to spend as much time as possible with these amazing pets. I can still understand why people get slow lemurs. Despite the potential danger of these creatures, they're very funny and cute. But a lot of people get this. Yes, this huge spider could very well be a pet. It's exotic. These are tarantulas. Many people refer to them as tarantulas. Anyway, those are different animals. They belong to different families. In any case, both are creepy creatures. At least in arachnophobes, the very thought that someone can keep such giant spiders instead of dogs or cats can cause stupor. However, people who have such pets at home see nothing wrong with it and consider them quite cool pets. You know, in some ways they're right. The bird eaters don't smell, don't utter any sounds, don't litter, and don't spoil things, and still take up little space. By the way, don't think this pet feeds only on birds. They can also eat normal food such as small rodents or insects. However, these spiders are still frightening, and not only in the way they look like, but also due to their abilities. They are poisonous. At the same time, they're not as toxic as some black widows, banana spiders, and so on. For humans, tarantula venom is considered not fatal, although it won't be pleasant. The consequences are comparable to a wasp sting. Those prone to anaphylactic shock may easily develop it. In general, you can have such spiders at home, but I personally wouldn't. It's better to get this exotic animal. I'm sure you've seen it many times or heard its name. Anyway, I think many people don't quite understand what an axolotl is. Probably some people suppose it's the name of some ancient city in Mexico. By the way, that isn't far from the truth. We aren't really talking about any city, but the word axolotl comes from the language used in ancient Mexico. It was spoken by the Aztecs, and the name itself means a water monster. The Aztecs gave it a precise definition to make it easier to figure out what kind of monster it was. Those were larvae. Did they everybody think they were all white, tiny, and nasty? Well, there are some that are cute and very unusual. The axolotl is the larva of certain amphibians in the Ambystoma family. These are salamanders. The main stock and trade the axolotl has is not even its bizarre appearance. This is the fact that it reaches sexual maturity and becomes capable of reproduction, still remaining a larva. The animal doesn't have an adult form. However, the situation is capable of improvement. If you move the axolotl to a drier and cooler environment, or lower the water level when breeding at home, the larva will turn into an adult ambystoma. This is the reason why some people breed these pets. They're curious to watch the transformation and metamorphosis. At the same time, you should bear in mind that it's very easy to fail. Attempts to turn the axolotl into an ambystoma at home in most cases end in the death of the animal. For many people now, it's a total surprise. What do we know about skunks? That they secrete a foul-smelling liquid with a disgusting odor. That's probably the only thing most people basically know about skunks. How can you keep such an animal at home? Actually, there's not much of a problem with this. A tame skunk doesn't use its stinking weapon at home. There are no problems with the diet either. Although the skunk is a predatory animal, it's unpretentious and can willingly eat meat, fish, and eggs. In terms of their character, pet skunks are often compared to dogs and cats. That means almost anyone can manage them. The main thing is not to forget to regularly comb the skunk and cut its claws. In fact, everything is the same as with cats and small dogs. Skunks are also considered to be natural enemies of mice and agricultural insect pests, so they can help with household chores. That's a definite plus. Skunks have become more popular pets lately. This also holds true of the following cute creatures. These are fennecs, miniature foxes, and the smallest members of the dog family. Something like a chihuahua but resembling a fox. Unlike chihuahuas that often show aggression, fennecs are deer creatures. They're characterized by friendliness and unbridled energy. For some, this may be a problem. Anyway, those who like to move themselves should definitely think about getting a fennec. This little buddy stands a good chance to become the most unforgettable pet. Here is whom you can also get at home. Yes, you're right, it's a dog. Now I'll tell you about them. African wild dog. Appearance of this aggressive animal refers to hyenas. They may seem to have much in common, but they do not. For example, hyenas do not care about active hunting. They usually engage in it only for pleasure and when necessary. African wild dogs, on the other hand, are almost perfect at it. In more than 80% of cases, they successfully complete what they started. And it doesn't matter what animal opposes them. Because of the combination of their hunting qualities and numbers, they can be 100 times more dangerous than even the lion. The coat of the predator is always colored with spots. They can easily be used to distinguish one individual from another, as these spots are as unique as human fingerprints. Surprisingly, in addition to appearance, the spots also help African wild dogs in the hunt. The potential prey being attacked cannot adequately assess the situation because the spots blend together. It doesn't understand how many dogs are attacking it and what exactly they're about to do. Speaking of prey, in these dogs, rules are especially revered. The African wild dog lives exclusively in a pack and is considered one of the most social animals. Why would you argue or quarrel over a meal? In addition, the entire pack observes an order, taking a practical approach to the question of hunting. If one group attacks only antelopes, the other will choose something else. It's like the wild dogs are saying, no food competition in the family. In fact, it's not just for food that they don't compete. No one is going to fight for dominance. Even without it, everyone knows that in African wild dogs, the main one is considered to be the dominant pair, which is objectively wiser, stronger, and more cunning than others. But once the leader rides off into the sunset and the whole numerous family instantly disintegrates and the territory is rapidly divided between members of neighboring packs. Don't worry, the neighbors won't miss their moment, especially if you consider the fact that African wild dogs rely on eyesight extremely seriously. Even when hunting, if a prey suddenly slips out of their sight, no one will sniff it out. They attack only as long as they see it. And when the hunt is over, the animals are in no hurry to bum around. The first thing they do is useful. They play with growing dogs. This is a kind of life lesson for them, which should teach a young African wild dog long and fast jumps, jerks, and other things that may be useful in the hunt in the future. The next dog is no less dangerous, even though it's in society. I'm talking about the American Pit Bull Terrier, an animal bred through crossbreeding and breeding. In the past, dog fighting was very popular in the pit bull's homeland. Breeders wanted to breed something very strong and fearless. the one that would be ready to resist even large wild predators. And after a dozen attempts, they finally succeeded. By crossbreeding the English Bulldog and the Terrier, the American Pit Bull was born, a dog now considered one of the most dangerous in the world. Among the victims, they have more than 300 people on their conscience over the past couple of decades. In the United States alone, pit bulls are responsible for 2/3 of all dog bite-related deaths, and these are only fatal outcomes, let alone ordinary injuries, wounds, and other mayhems. The main reason it's like this is the problematic character. The American fighting dog is insanely difficult to train. It wants to run around, waste its energy, get into fights, sort things out with someone, and during training it's taught peace, kindness, calmness, and other boring stuff. Of course, a pit bull won't go along with that. Nevertheless, there are cases where this dog is trained well too, and there are quite a few of them. In such circumstances, an American pit bull can be no more dangerous than a dachshund. However, if something goes wrong and this dog, for example, grabs a person, it will not let them go. At least that's the opinion about its dead grip. There are entire articles describing the lock on which the jaws of an attacking pit bull closes. It's also often written that dogs of this breed feel almost no pain. Kangal Shepherd Dog. While the American Pit Bull Terrier is an excellent companion and protector, the Kangal Shepherd Dog is a great watchdog. The four-legged friend acts as if it knows no fear. It can jump on a wolf and even a galloping horse, or fight off several intruders who are trying to get into someone else's territory. How not to mess with a Kangal? How do you know what's standing in front of you? You can do it either by looking at it or discerning one interesting element in its behavior. Even at a young age, the breed tries to keep its head in line with the back. They stand with their forehead held high, but when walking they instantly lower their muzzle. I don't know whether it's some kind of aerodynamics or just an old habit that creates the illusion of furtive movement. But what Kangal Shepherd dogs have had for a long time and makes sense is their unusual color. No matter what color a dog will be, it always has pigmentation on its muzzle, which helps regulate heat. But the main thing about the Kangal, since it's primarily a guard dog and not a cold climate traveler, is its powerful bite. The Kangal rightfully occupies one of the leading places in the world among our four-legged friends. It's said that the Kangal Shepherd dog bites with a force of 1,700 newtons. It's comparable to the leopard bite. And if you add here the incredible endurance of the dog, as well as its not-so-big size, then you'll get a great fighter that can protect its owner from any danger. Speaking of size, the tallest dog in the world was named Zeus. The dog was a Great Dane. These dogs are large in general. On average, their height is up to 31 to 35 inches, and they weigh about 175 pounds. But Zeus has beaten them all. The story of Zeus began in 2008, when he was only 8 weeks old. He came into the Durlag family. His amazing height was his main thing from a young age. By the time he was 3 years old, he was 43.7 inches tall, and let people know he was going for the record. If the dog stood on its hind legs, he was even taller than a human. Despite his gigantic size, Zeus was still an ordinary dog who loved walks, affection, who knew how to empathize and support in times of need. The only nuance the Durag family faced was trouble transporting their friend. The dog didn't fit in their passenger car, and sometimes they even had to order a van. In addition, the Great Dane was a great motivator for the people to go to work and usefully spend time there, since they always had to have money for food. The appetite of the dog was insane. He could eat up to 31 pounds of food a day. That's how, in joy, satiety, and prosperity, the life of the Great Dane named Zeus passed quickly. Unfortunately, due to the short lifespan of this dog breed, the record breaker passed away in 2014. Nevertheless, he still holds the title in terms of size. Greyhound. The English Greyhound, or simply the Greyhound, is the name of this smooth-haired dog. The first thing that made it stand out from the rest was its size. Because of this, only the nobility of those who wanted to hunt ungulates, foxes, or hares were interested in the Greyhound. To date, the situation has completely changed, and representatives of this breed almost never hunt. They only participate in the races. And rightly so. I too would only be glad to run, being able to speed up to 43 miles per hour. With such abilities in a sprint distance, these dogs can outrun even some of the top horses. So greyhounds rightfully hold the title of one of the fastest dogs and creatures in the world in general. But what makes them accelerate so well? What helps them? It turns out that their body structure, both inside and out, helps them to do it. The S shape is immediately apparent: a deep chest, a narrow waist, and long legs. These athletes' height is up to 28 to 30 inches, and they weigh only 66 to 88 pounds. Strong muscles on the back allow them to rush at the fastest pace when all four paws simultaneously lift off the ground, and the greyhound then stretches like a string, then contracts like a spring. They can maintain such a speed because of their big heart and big lungs, let alone organs. Even their blood is different from others. Compared to other breeds, greyhounds have more red blood cells, which carry oxygen to their body cells, making them more efficient. That's all, guys. Have you ever seen bears in person? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.